Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Last Week Tonight, where we delve into the perplexing world of international trade disputes. Tonight, we turn our attention to our neighbors to the north, Canada, who find themselves locked in a trade spat with the United States. This time it's not about maple syrup or healthcare, but something far more critical: access to Alaska. You see, Alaska, that majestic but geographically inconvenient state, relies on a Canadian highway for the transportation of goods and people. And in a move that can only be described as audacious, Canada has decided to leverage this geographical quirk to their advantage. In retaliation to tariffs imposed by the United States, Canada has slapped tolls on goods destined for Alaska that pass through British Columbia. It's a bold move, one that has ignited tensions and left many wondering just what is going on between these two supposed allies. The situation is more complex than it appears. The tolls are not just a financial burden, they symbolize a deeper rift. Both nations are now engaged in a high-stakes game of economic chess, each move scrutinized by the other. The outcome of this dispute could have lasting implications, not just for trade but for the relationship between these two countries. As we continue to monitor this unfolding drama, one thing is clear: the stakes have never been higher. Stay tuned as we bring you more updates on this and other pressing issues. To understand this latest chapter in U.S.-Canada relations, we need to rewind the clock to March 2025, when former President Donald Trump, in a move that surprised absolutely no one, decided to reignite his trade war with Canada. Citing the usual bogeymen of unfair trade practices, Trump slapped tariffs on imports of Canadian lumber and dairy, two industries that are as Canadian as hockey, and saying sorry excessively. Now, trade disputes between the US and Canada are nothing new. These two economic heavyweights share the world's longest undefended border and a deeply integrated economy. But Trump's tariffs, coming at a time of heightened global uncertainty, were seen by many in Canada as a step too far. The Canadian government and its citizens were quick to voice their discontent. They argued that these tariffs were not only unjustified but also harmful to both economies, disrupting the delicate balance of trade, particularly in border communities that rely heavily on cross-border trade. These areas, where families and businesses have thrived on the seamless exchange of goods and services, felt the immediate impact. The tariffs not only strained economic ties but also tested the resilience of long-standing friendships and partnerships across the border. As the situation unfolded, it became clear that the repercussions would be felt far and wide, affecting everything from local economies to international relations. Faced with Trump's tariffs, Canada decided to respond in kind. Enter John Horgan, the Premier of British Columbia, the province that serves as a crucial land bridge between the lower 48 and the last frontier. In a move that can only be described as a masterclass in passive-aggressive diplomacy, Horgan announced that British Columbia would impose tolls on all goods destined for Alaska that traversed its highways. This was a strategic move. The Alaska Highway, which winds its way through British Columbia, is the main artery for transporting goods to and from Alaska. By imposing tolls on this crucial route, Canada was effectively squeezing Alaska's economy, hoping to pressure the U.S. into reconsidering its tariffs. The impact of Canada's tolls was swift and significant. The cost of transporting goods to Alaska skyrocketed, putting a strain on businesses and consumers alike. Alaskan businesses, particularly those in the tourism and fishing industries, felt the pinch as the cost of supplies increased. In Canada, the tolls were met with mixed reactions. Some applauded the move as a necessary defense of Canadian interests, while others worried about the potential for escalating tensions. Politically, the tolls drove a wedge between the two countries. Trump, never one to back down from a fight, blasted Canada's actions as unfair and threatened further retaliation. The Canadian government, however, stood firm, arguing that the tolls were a justified response to U.S. protectionism. The situation quickly escalated into a full-blown trade war, with both sides digging in their heels and refusing to back down. Section 5. Public opinion: Canadians divided, Alaskans feeling the pinch. The trade war, and the Alaska tolls in particular, had a significant impact on public opinion on both sides of the border. In Canada, a Ledger survey found that 36% of Canadians had cancelled trips to the United States in response to Trump's policies, including his call to annex Canada through economic force. Meanwhile, in Alaska, residents were feeling the economic squeeze of the tolls. The cost of living rose, and businesses struggled to cope with increased transportation costs. Border towns like Skagway, which rely heavily on Canadian tourism, saw a sharp decline in visitors. The situation fueled resentment towards both the Canadian and U.S. governments, with many feeling caught in the crossfire of a trade war they never wanted. Section 6. Buckwheat Diplomacy, Skiing Through a Trade War. Amid the escalating tensions, a glimmer of hope emerged from an unlikely source, the Buckwheat International Ski Classic. This annual event, held in the picturesque snowy landscapes of the Pacific Northwest, has always been a symbol of friendly competition and international camaraderie. But in 2025 it took on a new, profound significance. This annual event, which sees skiers from both sides of the border compete in races ranging from 5 kilometers to 32 kilometers, became more than just a sporting event. It became a beacon of hope and unity. The races, which varied in difficulty and distance, attracted participants of all skill levels, from seasoned professionals to enthusiastic amateurs. Despite calls for a boycott from some quarters, the event went ahead as planned, with roughly 270 participants, 70% of whom were Canadian, braving the challenging course and the even more challenging political climate. The skiers, undeterred by the political tensions, showed up in full force, ready to compete and connect. The event, themed Creatures of the Deep, Enchantment of the Ski, involved participants crossing the border for the awards ceremony and after-party in Skagway. This crossing was not just a physical journey, but a symbolic act of defiance against the divisive political climate. The awards ceremony and after-party were filled with laughter, celebration, and a shared sense of achievement. For many Canadians, participation was seen as a show of solidarity with their Alaskan neighbors, and a diplomatic mission to maintain friendships despite the political turmoil. The event provided a rare opportunity for people to come together, share stories, and build lasting relationships. The Buckwheat Ski Classic, a testament to the enduring bonds between people even when their governments are at odds, offered a ray of hope in an otherwise bleak landscape. It reminded everyone that, despite the political and economic challenges, the human spirit of cooperation and friendship could still prevail. The event was a powerful reminder that sports can transcend borders and bring people together in ways that politics often cannot. Section 7. The Long Game Trade, Elections, and the Future of U.S.-Canada Relations. The trade spat between the United States and Canada, sparked by Trump's tariffs and fueled by Canada's retaliatory tolls, had far-reaching implications. It exposed the fragility of the U.S.-Canada trade relationship, which had long been taken for granted. The dispute also highlighted the challenges of navigating trade relations in an era of rising protectionism and nationalism. The situation also had the potential to influence future elections and policy decisions in both countries. In Canada, the Liberal government's handling of the trade dispute was likely to be a key issue in the next federal election. In the United States, the dispute could embolden those who favor a more protectionist trade policy. Section 8. Beyond Tariffs. The deeper issues in U.S.-Canada trade. While the tariffs on lumber and dairy and the retaliatory tolls on the Alaska Highway were the most visible manifestations of the trade tensions, they were merely symptoms of deeper, more systemic issues plaguing U.S.-Canada trade relations. The two countries have long squabbled over issues such as softwood lumber, dairy, and energy. The Trump era, in particular, exposed the vulnerabilities of relying on a trade relationship heavily influenced by the whims of a mercurial leader. The situation underscored the need for a more predictable and rules-based trading system between the two countries. Section 9. The Road Ahead, Unwinding the Trade Tangle. As of 2025, the trade spat between the United States and Canada remains unresolved. The tolls on the Alaska Highway remain in effect, and the two countries seem no closer to resolving their differences. The situation highlights the complexities and challenges of managing trade relations in a globalized world. Finding a way out of this trade quagmire will require both sides to show flexibility and a willingness to compromise. Whether the political will exist to achieve this remains to be seen. One thing is certain, the future of the U.S.-Canada trade relationship, And indeed, the broader relationship between these two North American neighbors hangs in the balance.